The courtroom was silent, eerily silent. Only the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the creak of wooden benches broke the tension that hung like smoke in the air. Every camera, every reporter, every pair of eyes in that packed chamber was fixed on one man, Ethan Cole, the 26-year-old who'd been found guilty of first-degree murder. And yet, as the judge prepared to deliver the sentence that would decide his fate, Ethan didn't look afraid. He was smiling, not a nervous smile, not a polite or apologetic one. It was the kind of smirk that said he thought he'd already won, that none of this mattered anymore. But within minutes, that same smirk would vanish, replaced by tears so raw that even the bailiff averted his gaze. Because when the judge spoke one single word, everything in Ethan's world shattered. "Mr. Cole," Judge Harrison began, voice steady and deliberate, "you've been convicted by a jury of your peers of the brutal murder of 16-year-old Emily Rhodes." The words echoed through the courtroom like the tolling of a bell. Emily's parents sat in the front row, gripping each other's hands so tightly their knuckles turned white. Her mother's eyes were red and swollen. Her father's jaw was clenched, trembling with rage and grief. Ethan, in contrast, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that smug grin never leaving his face. He looked more like a man listening to a lecture he'd already memorized than someone about to be sentenced to life in prison. Reporters scribbled in their notepads. The prosecutor, exhausted but triumphant, kept her eyes on the floor. The judge continued, each word heavy with moral weight. "You have shown no remorse. You have mocked this court, the victim's family, and the gravity of your crime. And yet, the law requires me to speak with fairness, not anger." He paused, looking down at the papers before him, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to stop breathing. Then came the words everyone had been waiting for. "It is a judgment of this court that you, Ethan Cole, be sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole." There it was, the final gavel drop in a year-long nightmare. But Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't cry. He just laughed. Quietly at first, then louder, as though the judge had just told a joke only he understood. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The victim's mother broke down sobbing. Even the judge's expression hardened. But no one, not even prosecution, knew what was truly going on inside Ethan's head. That twisted smile wasn't confidence. It was denial, a desperate wall between him and the truth he'd refused to face for nearly 2 years. Ethan Cole wasn't always a man in shackles. He grew up in a quiet Midwestern town, the son of a factory worker and a nurse. He was bright, charming, even popular in high school, star quarterback, the kind of kid everyone assumed would make it out. But somewhere along the way, something dark crept in. He fell into the wrong crowd, nights of drinking, petty theft, fights behind bars. By 19, he dropped out of college. By 23, he was deep into drugs and running small scams to feed his habits. That's when he met Emily Rhodes. She wasn't part of that world. She was innocence in its purest form, a high school junior who volunteered at animal shelters and dreamed of becoming a writer. Ethan met her through her older brother, who sold him a used car. Emily saw something in him, something broken but redeemable. She believed she could help him. For a while, he tried to be the person she saw. He got a job, started going to rehab. She wrote him letters full of hope and faith. But one night, everything collapsed. A relapse, an argument, and a single moment of rage that would destroy 2 lives forever. The details came out slowly during trial. How Ethan, high and paranoid, accused Emily of betraying him. How he hit her. How she fell. How, in his panic, he tried to stage the scene as a robbery. The defense argued it was an accident, but the evidence told a different story. The blood pattern, the bruises, the deleted messages. By the time the verdict came, there was no doubt. But Ethan never cried, not once, not when the jury foreman said guilty, not when Emily's mother read her victim statement. He just stared ahead with that same frozen grin, as if the entire trial was beneath him. Judge Harrison shuffled his notes, preparing to adjourn. But then, instead of ending the hearing, he did something no one expected. He looked directly at Ethan. "There is one more thing," he said softly. I believe the public deserves to know something I found in the pre-sentence report. Ethan frowned for the first time. The judge continued, voice even but heavy with emotion. In reviewing your case, I learned that before her death, Emily Rhodes wrote a final entry in her diary, addressed to you. The courtroom fell deathly silent. The judge reached for a folded piece of paper. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. He took a deep breath and began to read. Dear Ethan, I know you're hurting. I know life hasn't been kind to you, but I still believe there's good in you, somewhere deep down. You told me once that people like you don't get second chances. I don't believe that. I think everyone deserves one. Even you. Just promise me one thing. Don't let the darkness win. The words hit Ethan like a bullet. His smile faltered. His eyes flickered, as though trying to process what he was hearing. The judge's voice wavered as he continued. I forgive you, Ethan. Emily, that was the word. Forgive. It cut deeper than any sentence ever could. For the first time since his arrest, Ethan's mask cracked. The laughter stopped. His lips quivered. He looked down at his hands, shackled, trembling, and then toward Emily's parents. They weren't glaring at him anymore. They were just crying. And suddenly, so was he. The man who'd walked into that courtroom grinning like a ghost of defiance was now shaking, sobbing, gasping for air between apologies no one had demanded. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't mean to, he whispered, but the words came too late. When the guards led him away, Ethan's entire body looked different, smaller, defeated, not by law or justice, but by something far more powerful, the truth. Reporters wrote that the defendant finally broke. But what happened that day went deeper than that. Behind bars, Ethan became quiet. He read constantly. He attended therapy. And months later, he sent a letter, not to the court, not to press, but to Emily's parents. In it, he wrote, I used to think strength was never crying. Now I know it's facing what you've done and still choosing to live with it. Emily's last word wasn't a curse. It was mercy. I didn't deserve it, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to. Her mother never responded directly, but one day, a small envelope arrived at the prison with no return address. Inside was a photo. Emily, smiling under the summer sun, with 3 simple words written on the back. Keep your promise. Years passed. The trial faded from headlines. But people still talked about that moment. The word that changed everything. It wasn't life sentence. It wasn't guilty. It was forgive. That word didn't erase Ethan's crime. It didn't bring Emily back. But it pierced through arrogance, denial, and self-destruction in a way no punishment ever could. Inside the prison chapel, Ethan began teaching other inmates to read. He told them, I used to think I was unbreakable, but sometimes breaking is the only way light gets in. And every year, on the anniversary of Emily's death, he'd sit by the small window of his cell, place her photo on the table, and whisper the same words he'd once heard from the judge's trembling lips. I forgive you. A local journalist who covered the case once returned to the courthouse years later. The old courtroom was quiet now, empty, dust gathering on the benches. But when she reached the judge's bench, she found something carved faintly into the wood. For letters, etched with something sharp, almost hidden in the grain. F-O-R-G. It was unfinished, like a thought frozen in time. No one ever figured out who carved it. Some said it was a maintenance worker. Others believed it was Ethan during one of his hearings. But those who knew the story best said it didn't matter, because the message was clear. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the only sentence that can truly set a soul free.